Hi everybody, welcome back to Between the Lines. My name's Julian, I'm an obsessive reader and used book collector, and today I'm doing a tag. Not my first tag, not my last. It feels a little strange talking about a wrap up at the end of the year. I'm probably going to do an actual 2021 wrap up video closer to the end of this year next month, but for now, I guess I'll have to do this book tag. And I know it's about the end of the year, but it's still November as of recording this, and I'm pretty sure most everyone in the booktube community has done this one already, so let's just get into it. Question 1. Are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? Typically, I don't start a new book until I finish the one I'm currently reading. I'm the kind of person that reads one book at a time and will not attempt to start multiple all at once. I did that last month and it was really bad. It was at the time that I wanted to read Rebel's Creed in order to get a review out in time for the book releasing, but I was already reading Frankenstein and I had been listening to the audiobook of Ghost Story, Book 13 in the Dresden Files for almost 2 weeks at that point. So balancing Frankenstein and trying to get this audiobook done so I could go all in and focus on Rebel's Creed was pretty tough for me, so I don't do that. But there is one book I actually didn't finish this year, and that's because it's a short story collection, and I typically don't read those all the way through anyway, but I started this one and wanted to get through it in one go. Considering how short the stories were, I didn't think that would be too big of a deal, but these stories were so heavy and so emotional that I couldn't get through it all in one read. And that's The Ice at the Bottom of the World by Mark Richard. This is a short story collection that I heard of years ago, and it sat on my shelf for a number of years before I actually got into it, but this summer I decided to pick it up and make my way through some of the stories. So this short story collection is literary fiction. It's very grounded, very real, with some very tangible human emotion to it, and it was very heavy, which is why I only got through a few of them and didn't want to read it in one go. And this author's style of prose is very unique. It's very straightforward and very sparse, but very artful in how the restraint kind of, paints a picture for you, and has a certain level of kind of wit and humor to it that I wasn't expecting, especially in some of the darker moments in some of these stories. But despite that, I think his words paint such a colorful picture in your mind when you're reading it. One of the stories in here, called Her Favorite Story, has maybe the best description of a lightning storm that I've ever read in my life. So if you're looking for some good literary fiction that has shorter works that doesn't require a huge investment into it, I would definitely check this out because it's worth it so far, and I really should finish it. Question 2. Do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? Oh, looks like my cat's joining me for the video today. So I feel like this is a bit late considering that I'm Canadian and autumn started here a long time ago. Typically for autumnal reads, I'll go into horror and spooky stuff because it coincides with October happening. That's my one sort of, transition, but I also transition a bit out of that at the end of the month. I guess one other thing I may do is typically in November I read a lot of mystery novels, like Noirvember is what I call it. I didn't make that up. So typically in past Novembers I've read Raymond Chandler novels and stuff like that. But this November, because of the Wheel of Time show coming out, I wanted to begin the series in time for its release, so I started The Eye of the World in time for that release day. So it kind of ruined my Noirvember plans, but I'm not too upset about it. I have however many other months that I could read mystery novels in. Although I do some seasonal reading, like I said, in October I'll read a lot of spooky stuff. I typically read my fantasy in the summer, but that's changing this year, again because of the Wheel of Time. So it's not something new to me, it's just that autumn started happening here a long time ago, so I'm already partway into winter as far as things go. Next question, is there a new release that you're still waiting for? Not for 2021. I've been doing a really bad job of keeping up with new book releases. If you followed my channel so far, you know that I read a lot of old stuff and collect used books. So it's something that I'm gonna have to work on for 2022 is getting more into new books that are coming out and talking about those, and of course buying the books properly in a way that can support the author rather than buying stuff used. But there are a couple sequels to a series that I'm sort of in the middle of that I've been excited to come out, although they're not going to happen this year. Specifically, whatever the new Dresden Files book is. I'm still not caught up in the series. I'm going to read Skin Game as soon as it becomes available at the library, and then Briefcases, the second short story collection, and then probably in the beginning of 2022 read Peace Talks and Battleground, and then hopefully that year a new entry comes out, so I won't be waiting too long. And then also book 3 in the Band series, which had Kings of the Wild is the first one, Bloody Rose is the second. I haven't read Bloody Rose yet, but I did enjoy Kings of the Wild quite a bit. So I want to read that second one, and I'm excited to see where the series is going to continue going forward. What are 3 books you want to read by the end of the year? Well, I'll do you better than that. I will tell you every book I'm going to read by the end of the year. So right now I'm currently finishing up Foundation and Empire, the second book in the original Foundation trilogy by Isaac Asimov. It's alright, it's not as good as the first one. I think I enjoyed that one a bit more, but the second story in this book, The Mule, has been really good so far, and I thought that this one is maybe more thematically clear and resonant than the first one, although I have heard that the third book in the series, which is confusingly titled Second Foundation, may be the best one. So that's another one I'll be reading before the end of the year. I might read that right after I finish this one today, because the Dresden Files books are still taken out of the library and I gotta wait for them anyway. And after I read Skin Game and Brief Cases, I'm gonna read The Great Hunt, Book 2 in the Wheel of Time. I'm very confused about what's being adapted into season 1 of the show so far. I thought it was gonna be 3 or 4 episodes per book, but the way that it looks like it's happening is that the first season is gonna be an adaptation of The Eye of the World, with elements from books 2 and 3 kind of remixed and reworked into it. So I want to continue on with the series in order to not be spoiled when I watch further episodes of the show. I've watched the first 3 so far, and I'm curious to see how it's going to continue adapting that first book, but I don't want to be ruined on anything for books 2 and 3 especially. So that's a pretty ambitious list there I'm trying to read by the end of 2021. Although if I do have some time after I'm done those books, I will read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, one of the Hercule Poirot novels by Agatha Christie. Just a cozy whodunit starring a character that I absolutely love, and apparently one of the best entries in that series. Is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? I don't know. I don't expect Foundation 3 to be my favorite book of the year. They're pretty good, but it's not something that's, completely blowing my mind. Skin Game, Dresden 15 may do it, although I've read all but one of the Dresden Files in 2021 so far, so it's a tall order to compete with. It's got to compete with Deadbeat and Turncoat and Changes especially. Those 3 books were just amazing. Cold Days was really great too, and I think I rank it up there with the best in the series, but Skin Game has a lot to live up to if it's going to be the best book of 2021. Maybe The Great Hunt will do it, who knows? I've heard mixed things about people saying whether or not it's better than The Eye of the World, and I absolutely love that first book, so maybe the second will be even better. But my favorite for 2021, I really don't know. That's hard to say. Have you already started making reading plans for next year? Yes, because apparently I have way too much time on my hands and take a lot of care to plan out my reading. I have a giant spreadsheet of all the books that I currently have and want to buy and currently reading and have read this year, so I've started already making a list of stuff I want to read next year and a kind of plan of attack and how to approach it. I've read more books this year than any other year in the past, and that's partly because of BookTube and just kind of, broadening my horizons and seeing what else is out there and taking recommendations from people that I've met over the course of being a YouTube channel. And I would at least like to meet the same amount of books next year that I read this year, so I'm planning to read about 50 to 55 equivalent to whatever a novel is, because I read a bunch of short stories as well. I'm gonna get into this in a 2022 TBR video that I'll probably do in December, but for right now it's looking like I want to read most of The Wheel of Time in 2022, maybe doing a book a month or something in and around that. I don't want to get too burnt out on it, but I think maybe once a month is probably fine. I also want to get into all that classic sci-fi I've been picking up in my book hauls and maybe read one of those a month as well. And in the summer, I'm going to start reading the Master and Commander series by Patrick O'Brien, which is a series that I collected the whole grouping of in one go from a person I bought them off of online. And I believe there's about 20 of those in the series, so it's going to take me a while to get through as well, but I'm in no rush to finish those. I also want to get into more modern fantasy series next year, specifically the First Law trilogy. I think I'm going to read this isn't fantasy, I don't know why I even mentioned fantasy, but Red Rising is another trilogy that I want to read. My brother has been bugging me to read these for a couple years now. And maybe the Greenbone Saga and other smaller, more contained fantasy series that I can possibly read in a few books as opposed to these giant 15-book epic series. Alright, so now it's time to tag some other booktubers, and much like the first tag I did, this one has already been done by pretty much everybody, so I'm going to open it up again and do just an open tag. If you're a small booktuber like me and are watching this video and haven't been tagged yet, feel free to consider yourself tagged and go ahead and make the video. I'm breaking the rules again, but we're just all here to have fun, so might as well. So as always, thanks for watching. Remember to do all the YouTube stuff like liking and subscribing. Please leave a comment as well. Please remember to support your local library, and I'll see you next time.